This is a 9 News Special Edition.
Federal agents raid a Highlands Ranch home, arrest the man inside, and shut down his large marijuana growing operation. The DEA just learned about the home, but the owner already showed it to 9 Wants to Know to explain why he believes he wasn't breaking any laws. And good evening, everyone. I'm Mark Cobre.
I'm Adele Arakawa. The DEA disagreed. After hearing about tonight's report, agents took preemptive action this afternoon. 9 Wants to Know investigator Jace Larson joins us. Jace, this man told you he wanted to take the mystery out of medical marijuana.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He said that he wanted to show people that marijuana can be grown in a legal business. But today, the DEA made it clear that it is not going to let that happen. It took Chris Bartkowicz years to perfect his technique.
It's not as simple as putting some dirt in a room, putting some plants in it, and throwing water on it, putting a light on top of it.
In the 2,000 square foot basement of his Highlands Ranch house, Bartkowicz kept a sprawling operation. A block from this elementary school's playground, he maintained a jungle of electrical wires, water hoses, and powerful bulbs, all supporting this.
This plant is sour diesel.
Bartkowicz says he was careful to follow the law. He has a medical marijuana license himself and says he only gave or sold pot to other people who had licenses too.
According to him, and according to probably what he's seen on the news, he probably believes he is legal.
But the head of Denver's Drug Enforcement Office, who ordered today's raid, told 9 Wants to Know that while state law allows for medical marijuana, federal law does not.
Do I enforce state law? No, I don't. I enforce federal law. And nothing has changed in federal law. Wanting the federal law to be different is not a great strategy.
Special Agent in Charge Jeff Sweeten says his office has and will continue to go after large medical marijuana growers. 9 Wants to Know found other medical marijuana growing operations in areas around the metro area, from the north to the east, to the south, to the west, and in Denver.
We will continue to enforce federal law. That's what we're paid to do until the federal law changes. And the only exception to that is discretion and department guidance.
Even the storefronts selling medical marijuana aren't off limits.
I just got off the phone with a Denver Post reporter who asked me, well, you're certainly not going after dispensaries. To which I answered, who said I'm not?
At Barkowitz's house, agents took away 16 large boxes full of marijuana, putting an end to his plan to help patients who need it and make money for himself. We will learn on Tuesday what charges, if any, Bartkowicz will face. Regardless of whether the United States Attorney's Office files charges, those confiscated plants will be destroyed.
So, Jace, what does this mean for other people who use medical marijuana? That's
the big question tonight. We asked that of the DEA, and their response was that they will continue to go after large-scale grow operations.
All right. Jace Larson, thanks a lot.
Local medical marijuana backers want the U.S. Justice Department to intervene following yesterday's raid of a medical marijuana grow house. An attorney has filed a formal complaint after federal investigators removed more than 150 marijuana plants from this home in Highlands Ranch Friday afternoon. Those same agents arrested Chris Bartkowicz. Bartkowicz invited 9 Wants to Know's Jace Larson into his home just 2 weeks before this to show his grow facility to the public. And Jace, he was arrested before your story even hit the air.
Yeah, that's right. We're told by an official with that department that it was a neighbor who actually tipped off the DEA. But the attorney who wrote the letter that we just mentioned said that agents should not have gone after a medical marijuana grower. The letter calls Jeffrey Sweeten, who heads Denver's DEA office, a rogue DEA agent. Well-known medical marijuana lawyer Rob Corey sent it to the Justice Department 24 hours after agents arrested Chris Bartkowicz.
I'm very troubled about that, and I think the patients I've talked to are very afraid. The caregivers I've spoken with they're petrified.
In an interview Friday, Sweeten said he has no plans to back down because even though state law makes medical marijuana legal, federal law does not.
There's an assumption that I'm not going to go after marijuana grows. That's an incorrect assumption that's been put forward by the media in this town.
The raid came after Bartkowicz showed 9 Wants to Know the large-scale medical marijuana operation in his basement. Bartkowicz grew for himself and he says other people with licenses. In his first interview from jail, he said he believed he was following medical marijuana laws.
I was acting properly. I would not have put myself in the line of fire if I knew I was violating the law, he said.
I don't think they fully understand what they're doing. I don't think they fully understand the outrage from Colorado's population if they continue with this campaign of fear and intimidation.
Tonight, a DEA spokesman responded to the complaint letter saying many people in the Highlands Ranch community are happy that agents busted the house. Bartkowicz will sit in jail until at least Tuesday, Kyle, when he will learn what, if any, federal charges he'll face.
We may look back on this as somewhat of a watershed in this whole debate.
We certainly could, yes.
All right, Jace Larson reporting. Thank you, Jace.
It's a charge that could land a medical marijuana grower in prison for 40 years. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Denver has decided to prosecute a Highlands Ranch man. DEA agents arrested Chris Bartkowicz on Friday and confiscated hundreds of his plants. Agents raided his house the day Bartkowicz was to appear in a 9 Wants to Know story showing off his basement grow operation. After his arrest, the story never aired. 9 Wants to Know's Jace Larson joins us from the federal courthouse in downtown Denver, where Bartkowicz today officially heard the charges against him. Jace?
Mark, more charges could come at any time, but right now he just faces one count of possession of marijuana with the intent to distribute. The affidavit we received today spells out how investigators found out about his operation. An operation they say violated not only federal laws, but also state laws.
If you want inferior product, you can be lazy.
As Chris Bartkowicz took 9 Wants to Know inside his multi-room growing operation, he told us he followed the law.
If you're a good gardener, following the limits is easy.
Bartkowicz said after a severe car accident, medical marijuana helped him cope with lingering pain.
I can get out of bed in the morning, function, and my pain is not in the foreground. It's kind of in the background.
Bartkowicz told us he grew for himself and others whom he cared for. But U.S. Prosecutor David Gowett says Bartkowicz's operation went beyond that.
He is in possession of far in excess of what the state law allows a caregiver to have as far as marijuana.
This DEA affidavit says agents saw a 9news.com web article posted before the planned TV story. Bartkowicz gave 9 Wants to Know permission to use his name, but the article did not reveal his address. Agents used DMV records and an internet search to find his house. When Bartkowicz gave them permission to go inside, agents claim they found 224 plants in various growing stages.
Now, if he is ultimately convicted, he could be sentenced to prison anywhere from 5 years to 40 years. He could also be forced to pay a $2 million fine. Mark?
A story that our 9 Wants to Know investigators had worked on earlier this year brought national attention to the issue of medical marijuana and who can grow it. A few months ago, we planned to bring you a story about a marijuana grower from Highlands Ranch named Chris Bartkowicz. Our investigators shot the story and 9 News began running promos about the upcoming story, but it never aired because the DEA raided Bartkowicz's house and arrested him. Bartkowicz thought what he was doing was legal because state law allows medical marijuana. Federal law makes it illegal in all cases. That original story never aired until now. Here's 9 Wants to Know investigative reporter Jace Larson.
Definitely, I'm living the dream now.
Could the people who bought these $500,000 homes in the middle of Highlands Ranch have ever guessed the man living next door would grow his own version of the American dream?
I'm definitely hidden in suburbia.
Just 1 block from this elementary school's playground is a jungle of electrical wires, water hoses, and powerful bulbs, all supporting this nearly $500,000 medical marijuana grow operation.
This plant is sour diesel, and it is the 2005 High Times of the Year Plant of the Year.
Chris Bartkowicz is banking on it, earning him a record paycheck.
I'd like to see somewhere in the vicinity of $400,000.
In the kitchen, Chris waits for clones, clipped from other plants, to grow roots. After a few weeks, he moves them to the heart of his grow operation in his 2,000 square foot basement, where large fans circulate fresh air.
Nature's perfect outside. I have to be as perfect as I can inside.
To keep neighbors off his trail, Chris pumps old air through a maze of ducts into this giant carbon filter before it's released outside. It is a pricey operation. Chris's electrical bill for 2 months, $3,600.
It's not as simple as putting some dirt in a room, putting some plants in it, and throwing water on it, putting a light on top of it.
Chris's license as a medical marijuana patient allows him to grow for himself. And because he's listed as a caregiver for more than a dozen others, he's allowed to grow for them too. He says he never sells pot illegally.
Why would I? Why would I want to risk my golden ticket?
Golden ticket, huh?
Every 4 months, it's harvest time, payday. He's after the crystals in the plant's buds that contain marijuana's active ingredient, THC. The buds can be smoked, mixed into butter for cooking, or made into a liquid.
Do you think your neighbors know what's happening here?
I don't think so. I've been here a year and a half, and I've been, going full steam since day one. I think their eyes would open as wide as yours did.
A 9 Wants to Know investigation found residential grow operations all over the metro area, from the north to the east to the south and west. This one in Denver's 5 Points, a large grow house in the Highlands northwest of downtown, and one in this garage in unincorporated Jefferson County.
My backyard, you can't miss it.
Buffy Martinuska didn't welcome the business.
People were only in there at weird hours of the night. It wasn't right.
Buffy warned her neighbors, and the people living next door voluntarily moved their grow operation elsewhere.
We don't need it. We don't want it.
When you're growing in a clandestine residential home, you're going to have the opportunity for thieves to target you for theft.
Grower Josh Stanley is against large neighborhood grows too. He claims his operation inside this downtown commercial building with security is safer.
Digital cameras beamed off-site and in real time.
Chris's house in Highlands Ranch doesn't have a guard or cameras.
You understand why people might be concerned, though, that it's happening next door to them?
If my neighbors don't know, no one else knows, how would I be a target? I want to be invisible.
That story was set to air in less than 8 hours when Bartkowicz told us over the phone that the DEA was at his house destroying his more than 100 plants. He was under arrest. The head of the DEA told us that he went after Bartkowicz because of the size of his operation.
I mean, if you go on the news and you show this marijuana grow and you tell me what house it's in, what am I left to do? I have to go after it. There's an assumption that I'm not going to go after marijuana grows. That's an incorrect assumption that's been put forward by the media in this town, not by me.
The day after his arrest, Bartkowicz told me in a jailhouse interview that he was now the poster boy for the federal government's attack on medical marijuana. We have covered his story with numerous updates since his February arrest. Bartkowicz got one of the best drug lawyers in Denver and weeks later told a judge he would plead guilty to 1 count of possession of marijuana with the intent to distribute. But when it came time to do so, Bartkowicz changed his mind. He said he'd fight the charges, so federal prosecutors simply added more of them, maintaining a drug-involved premises, selling a controlled substance, and manufacturing near a school. At one of his court hearings, pro-medical marijuana protesters showed up in support of Bartkowicz. But facing decades in prison if convicted, Bartkowicz decided not to go to trial in the end. He changed his mind and pleaded guilty to all of the charges. He will be sentenced in January and expects to get 5 years in prison. Jace Larson, 9 News.
It took Chris Bartkowicz years to perfect his technique.
It's not as simple as putting some dirt in a room, putting some plants in it, and throwing water on it, putting a light on top of it.
In the 2,000 square foot basement of his Highlands Ranch house, Bartkowicz kept a sprawling operation. A block from this elementary school's playground, he maintained a jungle of electrical wires, water hoses, and powerful bulbs, all supporting this.
This plant is sour diesel.
Bartkowicz says he was careful to follow the law. He has a medical marijuana license himself and says he only gave or sold pot to other people who had licenses too.